Hey guys, I got myself a stand, I guess, for the camera. So hopefully this particular video is going to come out a lot better than the previous video of me working on the truck. So tonight I was playing around and I was warming this thing up at some point uh, after the engine cooled down from a couple tanks, and it basically stopped in its tracks. So the plug is fine. Well, I guess the plug lights up, so the plug isn't blown. It didn't eat up the plug. It basically just, as it was warming up, lots of smoke, sounded fine to me, and it just seized. So we're going to find out exactly what happened, and I'm excited to show you guys. There's about 2 gallons on this particular, I guess, cycle, if you will. Last time I was in this engine, it had 2 less gallons through it. So I did swap out the rear main bearing, and I did swap out the front to an Avid bearing. So we're gonna find out. Not sure if the bearing is the issue this time around or not. This is completely seized up. It might just be the one-way bearing. I'm not sure, but I don't think it's the one-way bearing. Now, we have to understand something here with these engines. These engines are Taiwanese. They're cheaply made. They're not high quality, but they put out a lot of power, right? So we have to realize that these motors don't last forever, especially with how I'm using them. If you guys see my videos, I'm pretty hard on these things. Pretty much every tank I burn, it's 90% of it is wide open throttle with these trucks. I like to run these things hard. That's what makes me happy. I like to hear these things scream. I like to see the smoke. I like to smell it, and that's just how these 2.5s and 3.3s like to be driven. They like to be driven full out. It's the only way to have fun, is to go fast. I don't putt around. I don't run these motors at low RPM. They're always running at high RPM, and those 30-minute videos, I do that all day long. I can literally burn a whole gallon of fuel without one stop, which I have done many times in my past, and have done in the past with this motor. Usually I'll burn a quart of oil or a quart of fuel just in the backyard, in an hour. It's just start it up and go, right? So there's people out there that are very opinionated, and that's fine, but the context makes a big difference. And when you're running a motor at full RPM for gallons and gallons, you're gonna have some sort of failures at some point. And I don't care to run the motor slow, or at least not at its optimum range of performance, because fuel cost is expensive, and what's the point of running a motor at 60% of what it can do just to try to keep it alive for a little bit longer, or try to retain its, you know, its, I guess, longevity. From my experience, running engines cool and cold actually wear the pinch out faster than running them hot. So my past experience with a bunch of 2.5s is that they perform and last longer if you just tune them for performance, and you know, the sound of them running smooth and healthy. So that's a good smoke trail. That's a good drop in idle from a wide open throttle pass. That's about, you know, a 3-second window, I guess, from idle to stalling when you're doing your pinch test. So you ensure that you have, you know, a good healthy amount of fuel going in when you know the engine is idling, I guess, your low speed. And you know, your high speed basically is just determined on those wide open throttle passes. So if the motor isn't coming back down to normal idle relatively quickly from a high, you know, wide open throttle pass where you're getting the engine to high RPMs, then the motor is running lean. If the motor doesn't drop back down immediately, or at least relatively quick, and it's not hanging, then you know, then you're good. But if it is hanging, if the idle is hanging after a wide open throttle pass, you got to richen up the top end a little bit until it stops that. So that's really how you determine, in my opinion, how if a motor is running lean or if a motor is tuned appropriately, is by understanding how, you know, the fuel delivery is. And so if a motor is, you know, is grasping for fuel after a wide open throttle pass, it's going to be, you know, the idle is going to be elevated, right? Just like if you're going to pinch your fuel line, the high idle goes up before it dies. And it's the same thing when you're doing a high watt pass, and that's for any engine. So in my videos, and how I, you know, how I tune these things is just to get to that point where, you know, you're at the point where if you lean it out just a little bit more, the idle will hang a little bit and then drop down. You know, of course, that's going to be a little bit faster motor. The motor is going to rev up higher and faster, but I drop it down just a little bit, and then that's where I like to be. So right when you start hearing the engine not dropping down in RPM right away, that's where you know you're kind of like at that edge, and I like to be on a slightly richer edge. You can see there's quite a bit of dirt, a little bit of leakage. You know, this particular car has quite a bit of wear in it. Excuse me. It most likely needs to be replaced. I didn't really have enough concerns with it to make it a thing. The motor was tuning perfectly fine. It was idling perfectly fine, and there was no real issues. But here you can tell this right here is pretty loose. So that is the slide, and that is most definitely gonna hurt, you know, the performance and the consistency in the carb tuning. That's what the benefit of the JW Classic Company carb and the OS carb is, that their housing is way more tighter tolerance, and so you don't have this wiggle room here like the Traxxas carbs. So that's, you know, definitely something that has gotten worse over time, is the wear and tear. So this carb, most likely I will just pull the things off, and the housing will be ready to be trashed. But I'm gonna clean this up a little bit, and then I'm gonna come back and show the nice details. So you guys can also see this header. The header is, you know, I got to clean this up, but this definitely wasn't helping any performance whatsoever. This occurred most likely because of the traxxas header was banging up against this, and it was just mushrooming the pipe was hitting against this, and it was mushrooming the header over time. So that definitely killed a little bit of airflow exit out. So that's cool to see that there's probably a little bit more in the bag there. Yeah, this one didn't touch, so it must be the traxxas one that touched. But yep, so basically this thing seized up. Don't know, I'm scared to kind of move it, but we'll find out real quick. Alright guys, I'm back. Got this cleaned up a little bit, and sorry if I ranted a little bit last 10 minutes, but you can see this is where my idle gap was. It's kind of a nice little idle gap. I hope this camera will pick it up. So let's tear into this thing and see what we can find. I have quite a bit of other parts that I can use to get this thing back up and running, and if this one can't, then I'll put a new, I shouldn't say new, but I have a few more used piston and sleeve and cranks and stuff that are in good enough condition to run, just like this particular one was. So I've recently been able to find some really good deals on the marketplace, and quite a few of those deals had some traxxas 3.3s. This is the first 3.3 that I ever play with, and it came to me used and jammed up, seized up, and I just put it together, cleaned it up, changed the bearings, and that's it. So, ooh, alright. This feels like it's a rod that went bad. Alright. This also might not be good, but yeah, so I have not broken in a new engine in a very, very long time. I just seem to be recycling other people's used stuff. So we'll eventually get to the point where I'll break in some new motors and see how long those things will last. But I've been able to save quite a bit of money just cleaning up other people's stuff and running it. Yep, so let's see if I can get this out. Yep. I suspect that it might be the rod that split. This happened when it was cold, like I mentioned, and so I haven't replaced this rod once, and so it has 6.5 gallons of high RPM running, like I showed, and then I'm not sure what other type of running time it has had prior to me receiving this or cleaning it up, refurbishing it. I know that the crank pin wasn't completely ideal, and that was, you know, from the start. But there wasn't too much wiggle, and there wasn't too much play, but there was a little bit of play. So if this rod split, it's very interesting to me that it split in very low RPM setting, but it was cold and it was very rich. So yep, that's exactly what happened. Look at that. Wow, that is crazy. Yep, it's split right in half. Dang. So I don't believe that is a lack of oil at all. You guys can see the oil all over the place. You see all that? So that is definitely plenty of oil because it's all wet. It's all lubricated. So, yeah. Okay. Let me take a few photos and I'll be right back. Alright guys, I took some pictures and got this one-way bearing out. One-way bearing is totally fine, so that's not the problem. One-way bearing is smooth. Another thing to check as well for the backplate, especially if you're having tuning issues and stuff and you've already checked your carburetor is good and everything else, there can be air that seeps through this shaft and then this bushing right here. So always, take a look and see how clean everything is. See how there's not much wear here? You can't feel anything with your finger or your nail. That's kind of what you want. And then when you put it in here, another way is to see if there's any wiggle, like side to side play. Like if you're just trying to wiggle it this way or that way, there's going to be a little bit, but there should not be much. And so this looks great. There's really very little wiggle, and this looks insanely clean to me. Does not look like this motor has ever seen 300 plus degrees Fahrenheit, although it has many times. This obviously looks really nice. All this gray matter is from this. So let's go and look and inspect this and talk about it. So this is honestly exciting to me, which is kind of odd, but this is what makes this fun, is finding the failure points and finding those extremes. And so if we look at this is how it just fell out of the engine. It just literally split in half all the way, right? The parts look shiny, right? There's absolutely no weird heat signatures. I'll wipe it down, but you guys can see this right here is some caster deposit, or I guess residue. And this is where the piston is. So the wrist pin is right here, and then this is the bottom on the crank side. So for me, it's crazy to see that it's split in half, like all the way through. I'm gonna imagine that the split started from the top, and then it just made its way to the bottom, and it stopped once this bent. Stopped the piston once it bent, yeah, there's no real heat. There's nothing that real shows me that this would, this motor ran hot. Like, look at this. I'm just wiping this down with a dirty paper towel, and it's just super clean. Everything is super clean. First time I ever split a rod or ever see an engine with a split rod. Never seen a 2.5 do this, and I've ran 2.5s hard on the track, gallons and gallons and gallons. We've never swapped rods out ever. And then here's the bushing, and look at how clean the bushing is. Like, there is absolutely no heat signatures or wear that I see here. So let's keep going. So now this moves, right? Which obviously there's going to be grit because of all the other stuff, but it spins just fine. Spins pretty good. I don't want to damage it more than I have to when it comes to the bearings. So let's get this out and see what we come up with here. Alright, that was tight. Let me see if I can back this up for you guys, just so I can have a little bit more room to work. Yeah, just like I'm going to aim it down towards the center here, and hopefully this will come out good. The one thing that I've been noticing is this wear and tear over here where the bearings sit. It's pretty bad. Not great, but yeah, that's how you can really tell if an engine's been run a lot, I guess, is if that wear on where the bearings sit, especially when you're looking at used motors and whatnot. That's a good area to take a look at. Obviously this motor's been ran through pretty hard. So popping this out as we speak, and you guys can see this literally looks just like how I put it in. There's a little bit more, you can feel a little bit more here, just a little bit, but nothing too crazy. Look at that. That's from, yep, that's insane to me. So this still looks somewhat reasonable. Yep. So let's take a mic, because I kind of have an idea of where it was when I was here. Yeah, so this is exactly like it was. Yeah, this has not worn more than it did. Wow. Okay. So this right here is good to me. 409 actually might be a little bit. Yeah, that might be slightly more. Yeah, it definitely did wear a little bit, but it depends where you're taking the measurement. So if you're taking the measurement right in the center, yeah, that's kind of where I should be taking it. Yep. It's not completely round, but that's exactly how it was when I took it apart. And then you can see right here, this thing's still round. I think it goes in this way. Yep. Look at that. There's no play. Barely any play here. So this right here did not really deform much. So if the failure point was over here, this thing would have already been like exploded, right? So that right there looks pretty good to me. So that tells me plenty of oil was going in there. So this is what it looks like in here. That looks like a good bit of oil. I'm going to take a picture of this as well. I'll be right back with you guys. Alright guys, coming back here. I want to take these bearings out now so we can inspect these bearings. This is the Huddy bearing removal tool, and it is amazing. It really does make things a lot easier. Usually you're able to see what you're doing from the top, but I'm kind of doing this all reversed. So give me a second here, but at least hopefully someone can see what's going on. basically you're just kind of clamping down. You spin this. Now you got, it's kind of clamped on the inside race, right? And then from there you just got to make sure this is somewhat tight, and then this will start coming out. Some people say you need heat. I have been lucky and I have not needed any heat for these traxxas motors. They seem pretty easy. So look at this, it's all clean inside that bearing passage, which is great. Yep. So that you can also see maybe clear my, the enhancement that I made. I definitely have better ideas now that I did this one. I think the next time I'll just make a much easier slit on the bottom, and that should be a lot easier and most likely do the same thing, do the same effect. This is the bearing. Let me tighten this up. Yeah, this bearing is definitely loose, but you can't, yeah, so this, yeah, oh, never mind. Oh wow, okay, so it's super tight now on this. You can see that this right here squeezes open, and then that's what creates the tightness. But basically, like, you can see how you can't hear anything. That means it's not bad. And then you also want to make sure the play, look at the play over here. There is very little play. This is an improvement. Oh, look at that. This is like new. A brand new bearing will come out with barely any play, like that. And then right here, if you're not hearing it skidding, then you're good. And this sounds really good. So that's exciting as well, because that tells me that the case enhancement to bring more oil into the bearing actually helped. Yep. That is nuts. Yep. Yeah, that's nice. This bearing is still tight. Yep, this bearing is still tight, so this wasn't really a contributing factor to the splitting of the rod. The splitting of the rod, I'm going to imagine the contributing factor is the material fatigue over time. And this isn't a rod that was replaced ever, from my knowledge. I mean, the 6.5 gallons of running hard is definitely not something. All that was on that rod. So I definitely did not run it or swap it out at any time in my ownership. So that that might be something that is important to do as well, on top of the bearing maintenance, is also change the rod out. If it's, I have no idea when it would be, but perhaps it's within 3 to 4 gallons of fuel, or maybe on the 5th gallon. But this thing failed at 6.5 gallons of me running it, and it had fuel in it before I bought it, or before I got it, so who knows. This is the Avid bearing over here, front bearing. Sounds great to me. It wasn't leaking at all. This one actually doesn't sound great. You can sort of maybe hear it. Yeah. Okay. I don't believe this one was new. I believe this one came out of a different 2.5 that I ran, and it felt good. So this one, you can hear it kind of skidding a little bit. So when you hear that, it's time to replace it. And then of course, not only that, but the side to side wiggle, that is not great. So surprisingly, this one is actually good. I'd run this one. Yep. Okay, cool. I think that's a win. And so this enhancement, seeing that this bearing is in this shape, and the first, like, I put a brand new bearing in initially when I started running this, and it only lasted 1.5 gallons before the wiggle was like a huge amount, and that was before the enhancement. And then I put another bearing in, and that thing basically destructed itself inside, which was covered in the past video with all the pictures, and that's what got me to think about making this type of enhancement. And now, after 2 gallons of really hard running, that's, you know, the last 2 gallons is probably the hardest I've ran this motor. So the last 2 gallons were definitely way harder, and I just wanted that extra, you know, 10% of performance. And so that's why it's been running a little bit warmer. And of course, this pipe right here opened up the RPMs even more, which might be a coincidence of this bending, but it is insanely clear that this pipe opened up a bunch of RPMs for that motor. And yesterday and today I did lean it out a little bit more, and it's, you know, I've never heard a traxxas motor rev up so high. There's a couple videos that have good running, you know, high RPM videos, like Kentucky RC. He's got a good video showcasing the JW carb, and he ripped around with his 3.3 T-Max. I'm not sure if those wheels and tires are truggy or buggy, but that motor, you know, RPM wise, sounds basically like this one that I was able to achieve. So really high RPMs, pretty insane type of power. And so this right here is definitely, you know, weak point. And the higher RPMs you get, the more fatigue, I guess, the material will become. But surprisingly, this bearing does not show any of that. So let me stop this video, and I'm going to go get you guys a bad bearing so we can compare back and forth. Alright, I found some bad bearings for you guys. So these are all bearings that I either pulled out of OS motors or the traxxas motors. So these three are all bad. So you guys can hear this. See that? The skidding? That is your indication that is bad. Yep. And then the side to side play, side to side wiggle. Same with this one. Same thing. Side to side's not bad on this one, but this is like, it's like, I think of this as like a rock skidding on a lake, but instead of the rock, it's like the ball bearings or the balls against the outer ring, I guess you call that, race or ring. But yeah, that's bad. This one's the worst. You can hear that. And this is for any bearing. It'll be the same concept. This one's nice and smooth. I haven't cleaned it up, but it's super clean. Very clean bearing. Yep. Alright, so next step. let's see what it looks like underneath the head. This is the first time I actually take apart an engine from the bottom to the top. So let's see if there was any detonation, because, you know, I'm running these things so hard and I'm overcooking them, and tune is not good, and the tune is super bad, and I'm killing these engines. So let's see how I'm killing these engines by looking at the piston and sleeve. That's sarcasm, by the way. There's a lot of years of experience that it takes to really understand, and it takes a lot of time to go through motors and different setups and fuel and plugs and everything to really understand what works for you, and you know what works for your style of driving and everything else. But I'm at that point where power is what I enjoy. I enjoy power, and I enjoy sound and high RPMs. I actually enjoy finding the limits of things. So, and then now I know that I have to replace these rods a little bit more frequently. So this particular motor has already eaten a bearing, and I've already cleaned up the top once, right? So this, let's wipe this down. This is going to be the indicator if this thing detonated or anything. Or, you know, if it was running super lean, super hot, right, there would be all sorts of dark material, dark colors, and all that good stuff. Detonation, there'll be like hard, really hard, what do you call them? Like if you take a, you know, if you stab it with like one of these and you just go like this all over the place, that's what this would look like. There might be, you might see a little bit of that, but all of this right here and this, like, it's not a perfectly smooth head button because it ate the rear bearing in the past, and I just took sandpaper and cleaned it up as much as I could. So this right here looks exactly like how I put it in. This is 30% nitro, more or less. It's 20 ounces of nitro for 64 ounces, so that's like 31% if we're getting really technical. But this looks really good. Yep, looks really good. Obviously doesn't look like it's been cooked. This looks like a normal running motor or head button. Looks really good. So, yep. That's that. No surprise there. This right here, obviously it ingested quite a bit of material, unfortunately. It looks like it damaged the piston a little bit. Now you can see right here, it damaged that. Let's see if I can get better here. Yeah. Let me take a few photos of this real quick. Let's see here. All right. Yeah, that probably is not repairable, but we'll find out. You guys can see that it does have a lot of oil. So it failed when it was running cool, and it failed when it was running very rich. So that's, you know, that's where the rod has the most stress. The rod has the most stress when the motor is cool. I mean, I did preheat it, but it wasn't like 240 or whatever. I think it had cooled off. Okay, so I'll be able to, I think I can just push this thing out and it'll come out on its own. Yeah, okay, cool. So, ooh, yeah, there you go. Yep, that definitely sucks. But you guys can see, yeah, it didn't take this off, it didn't take that off. This looks pretty good still. Surprisingly, this looks pretty good. Wow. So you can see here is all nice and smooth. Right here, it definitely got a little bit of damage from whatever it ate. Obviously, the rod took a side of this piston and it took a little bit of this over here, but this could technically be cleaned up. Could clean this up a little bit. This, you could clean this up as well. Make this side equal and try again. But let me take a Q-tip for you guys and show you what it looks like on the bottom here. What kind of colors are we gonna find? If we're gonna find some nice colors, or if we're gonna find colors that would indicate that this thing got smoked and cooked and everything else. You guys can see, is there any heat signatures or any signs of running lean? I don't see any signs of this thing running lean. This thing is super clean. There is no detonation. You guys might see a little bit of specks here, but that's from it eating that that past bearing and me cleaning it up as much as I could. So I'd say this rod has gone through quite a bit of strain just in the fact that it has gone through experience of eating a rod or eating a bearing, and whatever forces were acted on this rod when the balls ended up on top of this thing and banged up and deformed the metal up top here. I'm sure that couldn't have been good for the rod, but I definitely didn't change it. It looked fine. There was no wiggle. If there was any wiggle, it was is minor. You guys can see right here, this all looks pretty smooth, pretty good. I'll take that out at some point, but we can see that that's pretty clean. There's no crazy wear marks on that wrist pin. So that's nice to see. I'm not sure how this is going to come out though, and I don't want to spend too much time on the camera trying to pull this out for you guys, so I might find a way of doing that off camera to get the sleeve out. So I'll be back with you guys. Alright guys, this is the last section of the video, if you will. So I got this off, this wrist pin. You guys can see how clean it is. This is literally the wrist pin that the rod split on. Like there's literally no play there. Let's see what this says. .95, 3.93, 94, 3.95, 3.94, 3.94, so it's all very equal. I don't know what a new one looks like, but there's barely any wear, so there's plenty of oil that was making its way up. And that basically also showcases that the material they use for these rods is softer material than what they use for the wrist pin. I was able to get the sleeve out. You guys can see the sleeve. Completely stock. No work done to it. And you can see how clean it is. The coloring, the lack of discoloring. Right? Like, this thing did get up and was running consistently in the 260 plus range because of how I ride or how I drive the thing. And you can see it looks great. Looks clean. I did not really clean it or anything. This is how it came out of the case. I did clean this though. I cleaned it up just a little bit to smoothen it out. Smoothing this out too, because I was kind of curious. You can see that, like, it is so clean in there. Yep, it's this is cooked, guys. This motor got cooked. 6.5 gallons worth of cooking right here. Yep. People make me laugh. So yeah, I just cleaned up the piston. I wanted to kind of see where the pinch was. And the pinch is right here, so it definitely is. It was due, right? But where it started from, 6.5 gallons prior, it was literally right here. Yep, it was right here. So I was running when when the rod split, so it's not like it wasn't running. So motors can run with, the piston coming out of it. They won't run the best, but you can definitely make them work. But yeah, it was right here. So the thing lasted 6.5 gallons with a pinch that was like right there. Like the next 3.3 that I'm putting together is another used 3.3, and the pinch is not more than that. I'll probably make a video of that one being put together. If you guys enjoy these videos, and I enjoy them myself, so it's a good documentation, and a reminder, I guess, in time. But yeah, so this motor ran majority of its life with 12% oil, and I would say the 30% nitro was towards the last 3 gallons. Prior to that was 25% nitro. But majority of its life, if not all of it, was 12% oil, and that's roughly, I would say it's like 80% synthetic, 20% castor. The specific oil that I use in my mixture is the Klotz KL198 light super tech, I guess. What is it called? No, I'm sorry, it's Technoplate. So light Technoplate, that has, I guess, It shears after 450 degrees Fahrenheit, so the oil can protect up to, you know, those temperatures. And then I have 20% or so of Beano, which is castor, and that has film strength and protection of up to like 550, I believe. So you guys can see that oil that is used keeps these parts really clean, and I must say also lubricated. It's normal for things to wear, right? Obviously these are very small little motors and they rev out really high, and I'm obviously pushing the thing pretty hard. I'd say that there's more beating going on right here in the backyard than, you know, at the track. At the track, you're not wide open throttle all the time. You know, more of the time you're not. You're really just managing throttle and slip and traction. Whereas here in the backyard, there's so much traction. I just can full throttle everywhere. So, yeah. So this is the story of this particular 3.3. This piston and sleeve is definitely due for a replacement. Won't be using it again. You can see this is still pretty much round, right? It's still round almost. Yep. If it didn't snap, it would still be round, but yeah. So anyways, appreciate you guys watching. Feel free to comment and let me know what you guys think. Was this motor cooked? Does it show sign of it running really lean and crazy temperatures, or does it look like a well-tuned, well-lubricated engine that just experienced a rod that should have been replaced a lot sooner? So even though you might see that the rod and the ends are nice and tight, it doesn't change the fact that the material internally might be weakening and there might be microfractures, or, you know, just over the cycles of going up and down, and of course the heat cycles of the rod, you know, softens the material. So I guess you cannot only use, you know, if the rod is tight on the wrist pin and the crank pin as your indicator of the rod being good. Now this right here, I'm going to use this crank again because I don't see a problem with it. I probably won't put it in this new 3.3 build, but you guys can see, like, that is still very tight. Like, there's some side to side play on this particular one, which this piston is bad. It's worn down, but the rod itself, like, this is more or less how this one was for 6.5 gallons. Like, it did not budge. The crank did not wear more. So those oil passage mods, I'd say, are really helping a lot in the sense of keeping wear to a minimum. And I would say that this particular mod over here, where I opened this down for the bearing, also helped significantly, in the sense that last two bearings that I ran in this motor didn't last and didn't look anywhere near as nice as this one. And the motor wasn't making any weird noises or anything either, so I wasn't really thinking that the bearing was needing to be replaced. But yeah, so nice improvements and enhancements. Those can be done on the 2.5 as well. Never needed to on the 2.5, but might as well, if that shows that there's, you know, it's helping the life of the bearing, which I guess it is, because the bearing still looks new. I mean, there's like no play at all, and it turns super good, just like a brand new one, super tight. So I'm kind of amazed, honestly. Just some few things there. Yeah, that's the story. This is part of the piston. Unfortunately, this thing just took the piston with it. But I've ran 2.5s with piston skirts that were like shaved off. And I think engine modders do that too. They'll like cut some of this stuff off to lighten the piston. And also I think it opens up the transfer port as well, so there's just more airflow. I mean, just cutting this back, essentially as it goes up and down the sleeve, the transfer port will be able to transfer more just because of this cut. Let's see. I think that's it. Yeah, so I'll show you guys. This is a 2.5 that I have kept for a long time. You can see this thing goes straight through. This 2.5 definitely went through some stuff, but you guys can see the coloring on this one. This is a cooked piston. Okay, you can see the black, right? That is like really cooked on the piston. I can't really take that off, but this right here happened with VP basher fuel. And that's what I used. So in this particular one, this was 10 plus years ago really, but I cooked this one, and that was really based on the quality of the oil, or the fuel, I would say. Ever since I've been mixing my own fuel, and I've never seen that type of stuff, and I've seen a lot more consistent tuning and all of that, but it's a great indicator what the underneath of the piston looks like, because there's a lot of heat that gets trapped underneath, and if the oil, you know, if there's not enough oil getting in there, it gets really hot, and you'll see this, and that's what causes the wear and tear on the rod, and typically that's what causes it to split. And you'll see it split, and you'll see the dark colors and all that stuff based on the heat. But this particular motor is unique in the sense that this just split right straight through all of it, and it doesn't show any sort of warm heat patterns or anything like that. But yeah, so this motor went through a lot. It's a great learning experience. I hope somebody learned something from it. I sure did. I'll definitely be opening this hole right here for the front bearing, and I'll be creating like a little valley in the back of these 2.5 and 3.3 cases. I might go more in depth in other cases to show you guys the differences, but essentially this, when this sits against the case, there is very little room between the case and the bearing, and so there's, you know, not much room for oil to get there. So cutting into it and creating that valley has opened up a bunch of void, I guess, for fuel and oil to get into the bearing, and that is something that a lot of other manufacturers do, but they do it in different ways. Some people will, well, some manufacturers, they just basically create a bigger spacing. So like the OS 0.18 and the 0.21s, you'll see where the outer bearing sits, which is the most important part, because this center piece is spinning, so it's not sitting against anything, but the outer part is sitting against the case, and that will, based on the case design, you know, it might be sitting closer to that flat edge or further away. Well, further away means that you're going to have more of a void, and there's going to be more oil flow or gas flow going through there to get, coverage for the bearing. But traxxas does not raise the bearing very high at all, so there's very little groove or very little space for any oil to get in. Like, you can run your flathead or whatever against the case and there is a slight lip, but it's very little on these particular engines. I noticed the OS motors, there's a pretty good significant like lip that this sits on, so there's a lot of more oil going there because there's there's a good 1 millimeter space or something like that, and then that's the same for all the bigger motors too. So it's just interesting to see the design of just how the rear bearing is placed and sitting against the case. And unfortunately, the traxxas motors, they sit right against the flat edge right here where the crank comes in, and so there's really no area for oil to come in from the front. It would have to come from the back, but now with this valley cutting this in, you're creating that area for fuel to go in. So I don't know if you guys can see that. I hope you guys can, but yeah, there's this right here. That was great, because the only thing you have to worry about is the outer portion of the bearing sitting against the case. So you want to have good solid stable footing there, but outside of that it's kind of free game. But yeah, this manufacturer traxxas did not put a big lip. It's like barely there. It's like, it sucks, but it's not much. Whereas the OS motors is very significant lip, so the whole bearing is like kind of sitting in air, if you will, with this in here. This is basically, it's kind of reversed, but essentially there's a lip on the case that'll look like this internally, and so it'd be on this side obviously, but the more of a void you have, the more area you have for fuel and oil to go through. Yeah, whereas this traxxas one, there's like nothing. It's right against the the inner race pretty much, and there's no space for oil to go through. So that's the only reason why I did this right here, is because of that type of thought process and the design differences from one engine to another. And yeah, it works. So I'm going to continue doing that. Hopefully others can learn from it, save some bearing cost and other things.